My name is Carly Lloyd, and I'm here to talk to you about the trees. My roots are set in dry, dusty earth alongside spruce and lodgepole in the subalpine of Colorado. When I pitch my mind back to childhood, I can smell the warmth of the sun baking into raspy bark and pollen-sprinkled needles. I spent long afternoons on my back in the sage, watching the branches sway with the wind. As the seasons shifted, I watched the trees. During autumn walks to school, my dad, brother, and I would play the frost game, jumping down the trail, trying only to touch patches that had already been kissed by the warm morning sun. If I hit frost, I froze in place next to the towering trees and waited for my brother or dad to jump back and tag me and thaw me. As we tumbled down the trail, spruce and lodgepole stood by, shifting in the cool breeze as if to cheer us on. Winter encroached, and I watched the trees tuck under blankets of snow, soft bodies resting. The woods were silent as we marked the snow with boot prints and whispered as one does in a sacred place. When I was 8, the lodgepoles were facing the peak of the pine bark beetle outbreak, being devastated as insects marched across peaks and valleys. I watched as dusky green needles shriveled to brittle, burnt red, and tried to explain what the hillsides looked like to my colorblind brother. The whole slope is like a fire, I'd say to him. But that wasn't quite right, because fire encourages new growth, and there was certainly no life being cradled here. I hated that I couldn't do anything but watch as the trees that had provided me with so much freedom and protection were destroyed. The root cause of the outbreak was global warming. Milder winters and drought-weakened trees had provided a more welcoming environment for the beetles. Before, cold winters would kill them, along with any chance they had to expand on their destruction. Now, my home forests are no longer able to regulate themselves in defense from threats. It is heartbreaking to see such tangible effects of climate change becoming more and more commonplace in these spaces. I moved here almost a year ago, a transplant still growing into myself in the soft, damp soil alongside cedar and fir. Months ago, when the days were getting shorter and darker, I visited some ancient trees on Pachita Land, Vancouver Island. I stood with fierce lovers of the trees as they put their bodies in front of the devastation of extraction and remembered how it is to be held by forests and community. Blockades for these old forests have been ongoing for a year, and they are being continually threatened by the RCMP and loggers interested in the economy provided by harvesting giant old-growth cedar and fir trees. Spending just a weekend standing in the rain and mud, shoulder to shoulder with defenders who had been there for months on end, energized a part of myself that had been discouraged for years. I saw the power held by only 10 people, linking arms across the only accessed road to the old growth that was in the crosshairs for that day. I felt solidarity with the defenders that had locked themselves into the road to further delay the police and saw the RCMP's blatant racism and sexism on display. The Ferry Creek blockades are still ongoing and fighting for our right to old forests and clean air and water and stable environment that comes with them. The defenders on the front lines taught me the importance of standing for what you believe in and depend on, and the value in having trusted comrades to lock arms with, and how feasible and necessary it is to protect what cannot protect itself. All of my watching of the trees as a little human sapling has paid off. I've seen them sway with the breeze and the seasons, but I've also seen them snap against invasive violence. I learned patience and flexibility from the way they wait out the frost and bend with summer winds. But I want to move these lessons not into accepting all change as it comes, but standing against storms of extraction and selfishness, and to use the privilege of voice in speaking out for those who have none. For me, this means starting conversations about the threats our local forests are under, and actively inviting people into the discussions. I recently helped organize a direct action training camp for concerned community members within Whatcom County and beyond, and I had the honor of meeting Chiokten, a Wasanic protector of the Salish Sea. He led powerful conversations that taught me how words can be followed up with action and how the decolonization of both is absolutely fundamental in fighting for what we love. It was so energizing to learn from brilliant trainers and to see a cohort of other young people taking initiative in how they learn about where they live, and to start thinking about ways that they can disrupt the established order. This fight is important to me because I'm terrified. I'm terrified that despite all the work we have done, it won't be enough to keep our planet from severe damage. Uncertainty is part of any 21-year-old's life, but I question every day whether we'll have a habitable planet by the time I graduate. This fight is also important to me because I'm hopeful, and I don't see there being another choice but to continue to believe in a better future. These old trees are inseparable from vital aspects of our lives like salmon runs, stable soil, and clean water. We deserve a world in which we can trust that these systems can support us when we support them. As I stand here remembering my roots and turning myself up to new growth, I am for the trees and all they look over, and encourage you all to find ways to ground yourself in the soil alongside them too. Being in communities like this continues to teach me how hard it is for one person to stand strong in this work by themselves. We need a forest of support and connection to stand with us and hold us up. I am so grateful to be here today to see these connections growing. There are so many amazing opportunities here this evening to engage with. Later on, I'll be at the Center for Responsible Forestry's table and would love to help you start to advocate for your local old forests. I hope you all find a place to plug into and start doing the work with us. We're so happy to have you.